I had gone to culinary school here in Alabama, and my dad was like, went around, did the tour with me. And afterwards he said, I'll support you if you want to do this. I will help you pay for this schooling if that's what you really want to do. But I know you, and I know you're so passionate about music, and I don't want you to spend your life wondering what if. Somebody from MTV reached out to me on MySpace, and I thought they were kidding. I thought it was a joke. I thought for sure I was being pranked. And it turned out to be legitimate. And I started getting songs on shows on MTV. And before I knew it, I was writing a theme song for a show on MTV and getting my music on Jersey Shore, which at the time was like their biggest primetime show. The way that other content creators in the baking community continually just lift each other up, are so encouraging. You know, we have group chats with each other and we hype each other up, and we're transparent about who's paying us what so that we can, you know, fight for better, more equal pay for all of us, so that content creators are making the money they deserve to make for how much work they're putting into this.
Now let's talk about that cake you're about to go make, maybe even while listening to this podcast. I want to know what you're going to present it in. A basic box with extenders, wrapped in cellophane? I really hope not. There really is a simpler way to go about this by using Alba tall cake boxes. They're super strong, luxurious, they assemble in a minute with no extenders, no cellophane, and no fuss. Best of all, you get peace of mind when you hand it to your customer for its journey home, knowing it will arrive safely. You've just spent hours making that cake, so why not present it in something that shows it off? Check us out at www.alba.shop. Let me take you to Huntsville, Alabama. I doubt many of you have been there. You may not even know where it is. It's in America. I think I've driven through it at some point in my life. But that's where we are today to speak with Ali, or Sugarpusher, as she goes by online. Ali's a content creator, but she's been baking for a long time. Her previous career, though, was not in baking. It was still very creative, though. She spent a long time in the music industry. And as we hear today, that is a really hard industry to be in. And we spend a really good amount of time talking to her about this phase of her life, because it's important to understand that that phase has made her what she is today. It was a hard industry to be in, but wow, can it shape and motivate you to succeed? I mean, Ali has an incredible knack for creativity, but also is extremely kind to share so much about how she's made it successful to her, to people who are new to this industry. Her content is witty, inspiring, funny, detailed, and quite varied. We wanted to go in depth with a full-time content creator because this is one aspect of the baking industry that isn't well understood nor documented, and many people want to be a part of it or are forced into it by their own success. Luckily, we found Ali along the way to tell us about it and how her baking journey fits into it. Everybody wins. I really hope you get a lot out of this episode. So let's get on with my baking journey with Sugarpusher. Hi, Ali.
Hi.
How are we doing? Thank you. Listen, thanks so much for joining my Baking Journey podcast. Rachel and I have really enjoyed watching you on your social media as we've learned and done some research about you. It's been a really interesting sort of thing. I think I've really enjoyed getting used to the sound of your voice. I find that very relaxing, I'll be honest. And your creativity is just astounding. And it did make me think about, you are a very creative person and your history has woven you through periods of extensive creativity, but then also extensive dullness, we could call it. We'll talk about all that. But I was really interested to know first about your childhood years, because as I understand it, you grew up in Hawaii and Southern California before you moved to Alabama. But to me, sitting here in England, where it's, you know, dark and cold and raining most of the year, I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what was that like? Like, what was life like growing up on Hawaii and then transitioning to the mainland, but you're still in the coastal areas? Tell us.
Well, it definitely was a transition. I will say that much. So I guess you get used to transitioning when you move a lot, which I did. I'm a Navy brat and I grew up just moving around a lot. But I spent the majority of my childhood, as you mentioned, in Hawaii. It is very hard to get used to moving back to the mainland after that. The hardest thing was waking up every day and not seeing the ocean every way that you looked. That was really weird for me, just seeing just land. And we'd have like mountains and stuff. And I'd be like, this is so weird. I cannot see the ocean. And now I have to drive. When I lived in California, I lived in San Diego County, but I was actually out in the mountains in a place called Alpine. And so the ocean was still like a 45-minute drive away. And I was a teenager, early years, so I wasn't driving yet. Yeah, it's really weird to get used to, but Hawaii is just this place that is so naturally beautiful. And I have not been any other place yet that compares.
How old were you when you left to go to San Diego area?
13.
13. So like that's middle of, well, no, that's not even high school, right? So that's...
In the US, we call it middle school.
Middle school, okay.
And so, yeah, it was the end of middle school for me. It was a very strange experience. And especially when you're a teenager and you're a teenage girl, it was something. It was certainly an interesting shift.
Your creativity, did you have it at that age? Were you doing things like drama or art or even singing?
Music.
Yeah, music.
Yes. So when I remember this, I was 4 years old and I was in a Montessori school, preschool pageant. And we did like a little Christmas pageant thing. And it was the first time that I had ever performed. It was the first time I'd been on stage. And that was it for me. It was like something just clicked. And I was terrified, which I still am. I still have really bad stage fright. That's a fun fact about me that very few people ever guess. But I literally, until the moment I step on stage, feel like I'm going to vomit or pass out or some combination of the two. And then I get on stage and I'm like usually pretty locked in and I can focus on what I'm doing. And then as soon as I get off, I'm just like, but yeah, my whole life was spent drama, community theater, school theater, choir, school and community choirs, and any kind of art classes I could get my hands on, which I'm terrible at, and poetry and speech and essay club, all of those things.
That's so interesting because when I think about Hawaii, I'm thinking beach, surfing.
Yeah, like not
hiking,
doing stuff inside.
A very outdoorsy kind of lifestyle. Were there quite a few people who were like you in that environment? Or did most people just want to go down to the beach and play or just interested?
It was a very interesting dynamic for me growing up there. Certainly I'm very indoorsy and a lot of my activities or interests were more on the quote unquote nerdy side. And so I didn't fit in. I didn't really grow up with a lot of friends. I grew up with a lot of animals and pets and not a lot of human friends because my interests were so different than that of most of the people around me. But fortunately, I had a few people that I was fortunate enough to like be friends with that had similar interests. And they were all kids that I met through theater and choir and those sorts of things.
You'll find this funny, Alex. So I went to high school in Kansas and I did theater as well. And I totally understand the whole being the nerd concept. And one of the plays that we did was The Breakfast Club, which is a bunch of outcasts, obviously, So we felt very much at home doing something like that. So I totally understand your growing up. I feel like I'm right there with you along that. It's just you're just an outsider, right? People look at you weird, or you may have just your close knit group of maybe one or two people who understand you because they're the same weirdness.
Yeah.
But from there, it's beyond that. It's just really hard to fit in. It's not like you're into sports. It's not like you're into, I don't know, debate or other kinds of things that were quite popular. You were just on your own. Any siblings or?
I have an older half brother, but we were absolutely two worlds apart. He was a bit rebellious and I was just very nerdy, but not like nerdy enough to fit in with the nerds. Like I was not academically nerdy, which was a thing, right? I still had really bad grades and was always in trouble for that. But yeah, my brother was 6 years older than me, or is 6 years older than me. So he was always like in a different level of schooling, and he was much more of the slacker type. He'd just skip school and go hang out with his friends and stuff. And we just lived two very different lives.
Yeah. Well, you had the talent, though, in something. You obviously found something.
Were you baking at that young age?
I was really interested in, in the US, we had, I don't know if you guys had this in the UK, but we had the Easy Bake Oven. which is like a small toy oven that actually works. And it comes with these little cake mixes and cookie mixes. And they were very popular throughout the 80s and 90s. And
How
so
do we miss that? I am an 80s child, and I feel like...
And you baked when you were younger.
Yeah, I feel like I totally missed out.
they're amazing. And that's what really got me interested, honestly, in baking. That was my real first step into it, was like, oh, I love this. I can make like my own cookies and my own little cakes. And, it wasn't anything serious, but it was always something I was very interested in.
You didn't pursue that much. You went in a different direction, right? You followed a very artistic, creative career.
I did. I did.
And was that when you got to moving inland in the US, or had you started embarking on it's music production and singer-songwriting? Is that correct? Do I have that right?
For me, not production, but singer-songwriter. Yeah, I was very interested. I had always known from probably about the first time I performed, that I wanted to be a musician. I was always very interested in music. I always had, I'm going to tell you, really telling of my age here, but I always had a Walkman. And then when it became a Discman, I had a Discman. And I was always listening to music. I was always watching like Disney musicals. I was, doing all of those things in and outside of school. And so for me, by the time I was in high school and I got back to the mainland, it was very much like, I want to be a musician. This is what I know I want to do with my life. I have literally no interest in doing anything else. And this is what I want for my life. Still, one of my good friends, Joy, when I lived in San Diego, she had a house party for her birthday, and her brother was in a pop punk band, and they were performing at this house party. And that was the first time that I'd seen a pop punk band live. Like, I was already really interested in that style of music. And I was just starting to get into it, right? With like Blink-182 was like my first taste of it. And I was like, oh, I love this. And I had thought like, oh, that's, only for guys. Because at that time, that style of music was really, aside from like Gwen Stefani and some more underground stuff, it was really like pop punk is for boys, right? But seeing them perform was just like, wait a minute, I could be in a band. Like, I don't have to make pop music. I could make this kind of music. And it became, oh, I have to do that. And so really by the time it came to decide between, going to college or just living the rest of your life without it, I had gone to culinary school here in Alabama. And my dad was like, went around, did the tour with me. And afterwards he said, I'll support you if you want to do this. I will help you pay for this schooling if that's what you really want to do. But I know you, and I know you're so passionate about music. And I don't want you to spend your life wondering what if. Like, if that's what you want to pursue and that is what you want to do, as long as you're working, a side job, I'll support you 1,000%. And he did.
Wise words, right? Because that potentially is something that you would vastly regret, right? If you never took that opportunity and you never went down that avenue. And I'm guessing also you're in the right area, being in California, that you could go off and target it. It is a needle in a haystack to get into that kind of industry, as you know better than anyone else. So how did you get into the industry? Was it there's aspirations to say, yeah, I want to do that, but there's a lot of hard work, probably on the same level of the work that you're doing right now, just to get into that industry and get recognized?
Harder,
yeah.
Harder, 1,000 times harder. And again, so we're talking by this point, it's like 2004, 2005. I'm in Alabama. By this point, I'm in Alabama.
Okay.
So that dream is, I'm close enough to Nashville, but I'm not a country singer. And it was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. And it was the hardest job I've ever had. It was soul crushing. It was devastating. It was heartbreaking. It was, I want this so bad. I eat this. I breathe this. I sleep this. I live this. This is everything to me. And that is unfortunately who I am as a person, right? I either have to feel something 1,000% or I don't want it. And music was very much that way for me. And it was the one thing I had built my entire life around. And getting started in it in Alabama was really difficult. As a female wanting to do pop punk music, really difficult. So it became a matter of getting in a band that wasn't in my city, that really was pretty underdeveloped at the time. And, going to the closest big city and, joining a band down there. And then when that, we recorded some songs, and then that band kind of fizzled out. And then I moved over to Atlanta. I didn't move there. I stayed in Alabama, but I was in a band. I was traveling back and forth with a band in Atlanta. And at that point, there's just so much drama, unfortunately, when you're in bands. And it just became, this is ruining my experience. And now I'm going to go solo. And I want to make the same kind of music. And I want to work with really talented pop punk musicians, but I just want to be a solo act so I don't have to answer to anybody else anymore. And I did that. And within about a year of recording my first solo EP, again, I'll show my age, I was putting that music up on MySpace and really pushing it out there. And somebody from MTV, people that work at MTV as music coordinators, I did not know at the time, they get on MySpace, they get on Pure Volume, they get on all those websites where they're looking for underground artists that they can license music from for no money and use their music on shows to fill those cue sheets. And so somebody from MTV reached out to me on MySpace, and I thought they were kidding. I thought it was a joke. I thought for sure I was being pranked. And it turned out to be legitimate. And I started getting songs on shows on MTV. And before I knew it, I was writing a theme song for a show on MTV and getting my music on Jersey Shore, which at the time was like their biggest primetime show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it was crazy, with no label, no management, no nothing, just me, a really good producer, and, the support of people that believed in me. And it was crazy.
And you're negotiating all this stuff yourself with them. You've got no one else to really help you in the beginning, I suppose.
I had a lawyer, because I will say anything to anybody that's in any type of entertainment industry, always have a lawyer, always have a good lawyer that's good at negotiating, that's not afraid to negotiate for you, because the lawyers mean you don't have to be the bad guy when you're negotiating, and they'll really get you what you need. So for me, I did not spend the money on a publicist. I did not spend the money on a manager, but I did spend the money on a lawyer, a good music entertainment lawyer that negotiated all those contracts for me.
See, Rach, she would totally understand how, when we read about how bands break up and she would just know, oh, you probably want to see it coming, right?
But it's a very intense environment,
exactly,
right?
around these people all the
with
time.
each other so much, and you're bound to have lots of differences. And just for that 3-minute performance that you might do, I don't know, one evening of the week, but the rest of the time you're living with each other because you're trying to save money, or you're trying to write, and someone's going to be more creative and someone's not going to have a bad day. There's lots of I just think it must be we just see the glamorous side of it, like we see on any kind of social media. But I think if you peel beneath that, it's quite, and it must have been quite, as well as it was like euphoric, like getting into, MTV and being noticed and getting on the hills. And I did watch a few episodes of the hills back in the day. But also it must, it's a very critical industry as well. So I don't think you can come away from that from not feeling damaged, right, of some way and format.
No, it was, it's really difficult. And it's especially difficult, again, I'll say, as a woman, and one of my favorite artists personally, Hayley Williams from Paramore and her own solo fame. She's talked about it in recent years extensively, better than I ever could, about that feeling of being in this type of music that is very misogynistic towards women. Unfortunately, that scene at that time was so misogynistic, and the women that were in it were encouraged to be internally misogynistic in turn so that they could fit in with these guys in these bands. And it just never felt right for me. It never felt right. And it didn't feel right that I would meet with a potential manager at 23, 24, and he would tell me, you're going to need to lie about your age in interviews or never bring it up because you're too old to find commercial success as a pop artist. And I'm thinking, I'm not even 25. I haven't even had a quarter life crisis yet. Why are we talking about this? And for several years after that, I would not tell anybody my age. And they would ask me. I had one journalist ask me for a magazine interview over and over again, kept trying to get my age out of me. And I would not give it to him. It seemed to annoy him. And I was like, a lady never tells. Like, you have to have all of these dodgy ways of getting around it because you're told that if you talk about your age. And so my very last album that I ever did before I left the music industry was just titled 27 because that was my age at the time. And that felt like a real middle finger to the music industry as my way to go out of saying, well, you told me not to do it and I've done it.
So how does that feel when you've wrapped so much of your identity around being a musician, about being a singer-songwriter, to then leave the industry. And I understand it wasn't an easy exit either. It was quite a traumatic one. But how does it feel then to, we put a lot of emphasis on our identity and especially at a young age, that you had that dream from a very young age, this is what I'm going to do, then to leave it. Did your world kind of spiral for a while?
1,000%. I've had a lot of difficulty in my life. I will say that very openly. I'm very open about what I've been through for the most part, but it was just soul crushing. I felt so lost. My identity had been completely wrapped up in this thing literally my entire life. And, you get that taste of success, right? That was the hardest part. If I had never tasted the success, it probably would have been easier to let go of the dream. But because I had tasted it, I can never know, you know what I mean? I can never unlearn what that feels like. And it was so hard and I felt so lost, and I floundered until very recently, in very recent years, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, what to do next. It's difficult when you are literally just born with a feeling that you are meant to do something and you're meant to do this creative thing. And throughout your life, you're going and you're like, every time I do a creative thing, the universe seems to reward me. And whenever I try to stray from that, the universe just takes things away from me. What's going on here? Like, if you're born with a purpose and that purpose is creativity, it's this real double-edged sword, isn't it? So when you leave one creative endeavor, for me, it was, okay, I'm going to try to have this totally normal life. I want to work like a 9 to 5. I want to have a salary. I want to have health insurance. Like, I want to have these things. And it just felt the entire time for all of the years that I did that after I left the music industry, like I was just fighting an uphill battle. It just felt so unnatural to me.
This was when you were a paralegal.
Yeah, so I did a lot of things.
A few things. Okay.
I was in retail management. I was a litigation paralegal.
Fine dining as well.
Dining, yeah.
A fine dining pastry chef. That was like, I lucked into that position and it was, great. Well, it was great and then it wasn't. And I just kind of learned throughout all of those experiences that I am a person that is meant to be 1,000% self-employed. I operate best when it's just me and I have no bosses, and I get to decide what I want to do and I get to be creative, which I know sounds really whimsical and it doesn't work out very well for a lot of people. But so far, knock on wood, it's working out for me right now. So
how did you find that you were meant to work for yourself? Because the industry that we're in right now is quite a lonely business. And I think what you do is quite a lonely business. Through those roles, was it something about the dynamics? Was it something about having a boss, being told what to do? Was it the lack of freedom that you'd always had? Or was it a combination of multiple things?
I'd say it was a combination of multiple things. For me, after being a musician for so long and controlling my destiny for the most part, and deciding like what my schedule looks like, what I'm going to take on, what I'm not going to take on. And then going to these, for me, 8 to 5 jobs, 5, sometimes 6 days a week, or working in retail, like doing cakes in a big retail grocery store, and having somebody else tell you when you are going to work, when you're not going to work, having difficult managers that didn't want to see me succeed, that just wanted to use me as a cog in their machine. And I was, dispensable to them. And I didn't like feeling that way. And that's the way that I felt at almost every job that I had outside of the music industry, was just, we can hire someone else to do this for less money than we're paying you. And that's it. And that just, I am naturally just opposed to that.
Yeah.
And so those things didn't work out, because if I don't like something, if I don't like the way that people, not just me, but if I'm in an environment where we've got a bad manager and they're treating a bunch of people poorly, I'm going to be the one that doesn't shut my mouth. I'm going to be the one that gets written up. I'm going to be the one that loses my job, because, again, I'm very passionate, and it's really difficult for me in a lot of ways to play the game, because, I don't know, creativity, I guess.
Yeah. You mentioned a couple of roles there, like pastry chef, working in, cakes in retail. Obviously, this is back to the baking sort of thing. Like, was that your first thing when you left the music industry? You're just thinking, what else am I going to do with my life? And baking was that first thing that popped up?
I think the first thing was just like, I've got to do something, right? And I'd done retail for a long time. I really did not like retail management. I was fine at it, but I didn't like it. People are so rude to service industry workers. That's another conversation, but I just didn't like it. And so it was like, well, what else am I passionate about? And for me, I've only ever really been passionate about like music and baking. And so that was the next step for me. It was like, well, I've got to be able to do this. And I wasn't very good yet, but I was like, I could probably get good at this. I like it a lot. So let's try, let's see what we can do. And yeah, so that just felt like I needed to be doing something creative. But then with doing creativity for someone else, like fine dining pastry chef, it wasn't quite my style of being, creative. And it was, again, a lot of politics, a lot of drama in the kitchen, with working with all men, being the only woman in the kitchen, being constantly disrespected, being told that I was flirting with the vegetable delivery guy because I was helping him put away the delivery that I was scheduled to help him put away, or being accused of having an affair with my head chef because we would talk to each other during our working shift and everybody would be making fun of us. And it's like, and I was in a serious relationship at the time and it was really disrespectful. And I was just like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not in high school anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not here to play these games. I'm here to work and do my job really well. And I can't do that with this nonsense going on. And I just found that in so many places, the environments were so unprofessional that it just made doing what I love annoying.
Very toxic environments, right? So, but thank goodness, as awful and horrible environments that they spurred you on to find something that you could do for yourself. And that's where, at the same time, as well as, I know that we jump a step, I know you're working as a paralegal, but at that time you also started your own cake business. So you had that creative outlet. So even though you're going in, doing the paralegal, which is very difficult for a creative brain to go in and do. But so this excitement of having this cake business must have been like fantastic, right?
It was nice. It was very difficult, just the area that I'm in, right? In some areas, you'll get places that you have these cottage food bakeries or these small brick and mortars and they perform so well. But where I live is a lot of like chain restaurants and we're getting better. My city is growing. We're starting to get a little bit of culture in here and, restaurants that aren't chains. And there's, a bakery that's performing really well. We have one chocolatiering shop that's amazing. The women are so phenomenally talented there. And that's great. But, for the most part, it was just, I wasn't really making the kind of money that I needed to be making. And I was working full time with my brain filled with legalese. And I was like, I can't do both of these things. And I was like, I just can't do this. This takes up so much. And I was like, but my paralegal job is like, I get a salary and I have really good health insurance, which is not something you have to worry about over there. But here in the States, you need the good health insurance. And so it was really just like at a certain point, it was like, I've got to sacrifice one of these and one of these is paying my bills and the other is actually costing me money for the most part. So it's difficult. But you touched on something that is so important, which is that all of those bad experiences are what spurred me. They just lit the fire because I'm one of those people. You can call me spiteful maybe, but because I'm very difficult in that sense that I'm like, oh, you've said I can't do it, or, oh, this is terrible and I hate this. How do I make this better? I'm going to make this better. Like, I want to do something for myself. And those bad experiences did ultimately lead me to where I am now. So, in some ways I am very grateful for the places that did fire me or the people that didn't appreciate me and I walked out on, because all of that has led me to where I am now.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword though, isn't it? Because sometimes they're so hard to escape as well. They're what spurs you on, but they're also there's quite a dark side as well to them as well. So it's not an easy balance, but I find that anyone who's done great success in their life has usually had quite a few bad experiences along the way.
There's always been some kind of trauma or something that spurs them,
that drives you, that motivates you. I was looking back at your TikTok videos and February 2020, so lockdown again. We get in lockdown. But it'd been a bit of a hard, an understatement, but a hard time for you because you had just been made redundant at that time, right? and you also have some health issues. So it meant that you have to be in isolation, especially during the pandemic. Talk us through what you were thinking at that time, because I know your first TikToks were about cats, your lovely cats.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know it wasn't necessarily started for baking, but was this out of boredom of sheer, like, what am I going to do?
It was a combination of things. I joined TikTok because everybody was on it and I had no time to join it. I didn't care. And then suddenly I had so much free time on my hands. And it was like, okay, immediately I lose my job. Okay, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to find something else. And then the pandemic hit. And when I first lost my job at the end of January, early February, we didn't know what was going on yet. My then fiance, now husband, was just like a week away from getting ready to go on a ski trip in France. And he still went. And he was like, while he was over there, he was like, oh, somebody one town away has COVID. And it was this whole thing. And, by the time he got back, it was like, oh, we have to be in the house now. Like, we really have to be in the house. And my doctor's telling me, you need to be extra. Look, we don't know what's wrong with you, but something is wrong with your immune system.
Yeah.
You need to be as cautious as you can be. And I had no idea what I was going to do. But my friend Lauren, who is I just always call her my sweet baby angel. She's so funny and amazing, but she's younger than me. And she was like, you just try TikTok, make baking tutorials on TikTok. And I had, my couple of cat videos or whatever.
Well, they're very cute, by the way. They're very cute.
Thank you. And she was like, try making baking tutorials. And I was like, Lauren, I'm too old to even have a TikTok account. Okay. I'm certainly not going to try to make baking tutorials. She's like, just shut up and do it. And I did it. And I mean, my old ones, they're different things, right? I tried different things, different baking recipes, different cooking recipes. Some of them are, not very good. And I didn't have a ring light and the lighting wasn't good, but I was just doing it. I was just trying it. And then very quickly, within a couple of months, it became, oh, wow, I've got thousands of views. Oh, I have hundreds of thousands of views. Oh, I have over 1 million views. What's going on here? And it was so different from Instagram because Reels, I don't even think were really a thing at the time, right? It was just like video or static posting. It was just so different. And it was like Instagram had been this huge battle for me of I cannot find success here. And TikTok was the opposite. It was just amazing. It just instantly gave me this platform and I started seeing success with it. And it was just, I became addicted to it. It was like, this could be a real thing. And then it became a real thing, which is crazy. It's really crazy the way that TikTok worked.
Did you see that potential for it to pay you money at some point when you were doing that and starting to see views? Was your mind clicking in that way? Or was it just more about, this is going somewhere, I just don't know where, I'm just going to keep going with it?
For me, it was, I could maybe get some things from brands that I love, like these things that I would already buy and I would already use. Like once I started getting a lot of views and having some brands, brands are very active on social media. There are a lot that are really trying to get themselves out there. And it was just oh, maybe I could work with some brands, maybe they could send me something. Oh, I could get a PR package. And that's how it started. And then about a year into it, it became, oh, wait, I'm getting a lot of views. I could probably get paid. I should probably be getting paid to do this. I'm doing all of this work at that time for one brand. I was doing all of this work for them and they would send me supplies, but they would often be things that I wasn't going to use more than once other than for the video they wanted. And it was great. And it was so generous of them, but also I needed to be paid for my time because by that time it was becoming full-time work and I was not getting paid for it. And so that kind of led into, oh, I should really be making money for this.
I want to talk about cupcake boxes, especially if you need room for tall ones or floral cupcakes. There's never really been a cupcake box on the market that gave you the confidence to safely transport them without damaging them. Nor has there been anything that makes it easy to place or remove cupcakes without ruining those pretty decorations. Until now. The Alba cupcake box fixes all these issues. Plenty of height, strong, and a gorgeous cupcake box that opens fully into a built-in serving tray. No mess, no fuss, no cupcake teeth, and no damage. Even your customers will appreciate just how easy it is to open the box and serve right from the tray. check them out at www.olba.shop. You haven't had really any training except for you've been trained on chocolate, correct?
Correct.
So you're making this content, you're creating this content, you're doing tutorials, and you're navigating your way through it, let's call it. But it took you a while to get to the point where you started making income out of it. Was there any concern for you around, I don't know if this is going to work out, or was that completely overshadowed by the fact that you were A, being creative, B, you're back in your happy place, distracted from the pandemic and everything else that's going on? Was there enough there that it just completely, like the first time you're back in 100% creative mode since leaving the music industry? Would you call it that?
I think that more than anything, it was gratitude. Like I just felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude because I had nowhere else to be. I was still being told to keep safe. We hadn't had, any things yet to help us get through it. And it was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it and it seems to be working, which really I have found is like 90% of adulthood, right? Is like when you're a kid, you think adults have it figured out. You think surely they all know what they're doing. They look like they know what they're doing. And then you become an adult and you realize that was a lie. That was a facade. Adults have no idea what they're doing at any given time. And everybody has these moments of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm here and I got to do something. And so for me, it was just, yes, gratitude that I was getting to be creative again. And really early on, the first year and a half even, it was like, oh, I don't know how I'm ever really going to make like a significant amount of money from this. But I just, and it can sound woo-woo if you want it to, I really got into like, I find for my mental health that practicing gratitude is a really good thing for me. Like practicing gratitude, sitting down with my husband at the dinner table or writing it down in a journal. 3 things we're grateful for today. Go. And also for me, very woo-woo, to each their own, manifesting, visualizing what I want, visualizing what I want to do, believing that it's going to happen for me, and sort of bringing on those positive things that have come to me. Am I saying that's responsible for my success? No, but I think that your state of mind is just more open to those things. If you're saying like, yeah, good things are going to happen. I'm going to make good things happen and good things are going to happen. And I'm worthy of good things happening, and just focusing your passion on what you love doing. And that may not work for everybody, but because I'm creative and I'm passionate, it works for me. At least so far it has. So
I think you've got to have that inner self-belief to get up every single day and think about, all right, what am I going to put on social media today? What am I going to put? There's a lot of work. Ali, I'm sure you can explain, like, this is not a 9 to 5. This is something that you're thinking about constantly, 7 days a week. And it's probably a very difficult thing to switch off from. I mean, the level of content that you're producing and also what you were producing to begin with, there's multiple camera angles, there's multiple voiceovers, there's different edits, shots, lighting. There's so much that's there. Never mind the baking. I can't imagine how many times you stop, start, just to, and then editing those videos afterwards and then publishing them and then managing comments and feedback. And now you're going back into with brands and all sorts of stuff. And also you've got your blog on the side as well. You have to have that inner belief in yourself that you're doing this for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Because you are putting everything into it.
Everything. And that's one thing, when you start and you don't have anywhere else to go, right? You're just being held captive in your house and you have nowhere to go. You have nothing to do. So you have that net, that safety net of, I have the room to try this. I have the freedom to try this. I have the time. I don't have anywhere else to be or anything else to do. I have the time to try it. And now the world is going back into the real world. And that was my fear, right? That like we were going to go back out into society. And that happened for me. For some people, it happened in a few months. For me, it did not happen when lockdown ended. It happened last year. May of last year was the first time I stepped on a plane and, left the country in 2 years. And so it was a lot and it was very scary. And it was like, I don't know if this is going to last once the pandemic is gone. But fortunately for me, this is so far my best year yet, my most successful year yet financially. And I'm really hoping that I get to continue to build on that and just grow and grow, because now I've sort of laid the foundation for this brand. And I have now seen the picture of it goes so far beyond the content. And, it's back to really, some people call delusional thinking. There's this, oh, be a lucky girl, have lucky girl syndrome. You have to be delusional about what you want. Except for me, my goals might seem delusional to a lot of people, but for me, it's that those are just my goals. Like, it's not everything that I want to do, I feel capable of doing. And some people might call it delusional, but for me, it's like, no, I think I'm pretty capable of that. Like, I've really been through the ringer and I have proven that I can do hard things. And I know that I'm meant for these things. And for me now, it's never ignoring that intuition again of, I know I have a purpose. I know that my purpose is to be creative, and I am driven to do that. And I know that things can work out for me when I listen to that intuition and I keep on that course no matter how hard it gets.
That's also, I suppose, that will push through any sort of negativity that you can be hit with, which you get hit all the time with it. But before we talk about that, I'm really interested, like, do you find a lot of people giving you the feedback that you are helping them, inspiring them, encouraging them? Because we always tend to focus on the negative bits of this, but I wonder how much of the positive feedback you get from what you do.
It's so interesting because in the music industry, right, it's mostly negative feedback. There's so much negativity. And one of the first things I realized when I really got into baking, I started just like, I was baking all these things and then I was taking them to people, like to friends and stuff, because I was experimenting with recipes and technique and learning how to do things. And people would be like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It was always a compliment. It was always positivity. People are so happy to be getting baked goods most of the time. People are just so happy that you're giving them food, right? And it became, oh, I like this. This is good. This is nice feedback. It's not always critical feedback. And there is in the social media aspect of this, right? I know you've seen it. There's so much negativity, but I feel so fortunate that in this baking content realm, this little niche that we're in, people are amazing. I mean, yeah, you have trolls and you have people that are rude, but they're not the people that are your real followers. They're not the people that, are your colleagues or your peers, your fellow content creators. Like, the way that other content creators, that's the most inspiring thing to me, is the way that other content creators in the baking community continually just lift each other up, are so encouraging. We have group chats with each other and we hype each other up and we're transparent about who's paying us what, so that we can, fight for better, more equal pay for all of us, so that content creators are making the money they deserve to make for how much work they're putting into this. Because, there is this thing where it's like, you're an influencer, so you just film yourself, you just take selfies, or you just unbox something, and then you just get paid tons of money and you get all this free stuff. And it's like, do you know how hard it is to like sit down, have a creative meeting with some big company and knock out an idea that's, going to work for everybody and for their legal team? And then like all the rules that you have to go through, all the step-by-step, filming it at different camera angles, taking photographs at different stages or when the thing is finished, editing it all together, which, by the way, when I started this, I had no idea how to edit a photo. I had no idea how to edit a video. That was all stuff that I had to learn as I went along. And so it's so refreshing to be in this place, in this community where there is so much positive feedback. There's so much positive feedback, in fact, that it really, for me, kind of cancels out the really negative stuff that I get. Like, the negative stuff is frustrating, but I find in the baking community, there's so much more positivity, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I totally believe you when you say that, because I feel like I'm not a content creator. Rachel does create content, but the content that we create for what we do and for our business is obviously through her baking, promoting our packaging. That's fine. What I'm getting to here is that even in this realm of this industry that you're talking about, there are people who comment with such positivity and encouragement, even for the stuff that it's not what, she does. And the number of people that have actually asked me to say, when are we going to have Rachel on the podcast to hear her story? And this goes back to what you're talking about, right? This industry is really tight knit, which I find hilarious and interesting, because it is so isolated at the same time, right?
We're all desperate for that community, though, aren't we? We're all desperate to.
I mean,
come
that's why we
together.
created this podcast, is just to give that sense of, people who are following you and listening to. A lot of the bakers that we talk to do not have any kind of history like you. They don't have a career in something else, or got onto television, or, have huge followings, or have done podcasts or books or whatever, right? It's a first time for them, but they're still quite well known. And I feel like that is a story there that needs to be shared. And you're doing exactly the same thing, which is really cool. But this baking industry is just amazing in that sense.
People are so wonderful. And I love that there are so many talented women in particular building other women. There is nothing I love more than women supporting other women, genuinely, not supporting them to their faces and being rude and critical of them behind their backs. Like, if they have a criticism, they'll take it directly to you and they'll do it in a nice way. Like, I would not be where I am without the other baking content creators in this industry that are my support group, I might not get to see them very often or ever. I may never have met some of them in person, but they're the most incredible people to me. And it's just so encouraging. It's so encouraging to see it because, we're all kind of isolated, right? Because most of us are like working out of our houses. Some bigger creators are working out of a studio, and we're all kind of spread out around the world. And I feel like you're especially isolated in the UK. That's another story. I've heard things from one of my other content friends that's in the UK over there. And she's just like, I feel like I'm on an island. It feels like an island over here, especially for getting brand deals and stuff. It feels like, the US is a bit heavier on those things. And so, it can be really isolating, but somehow at the same time, we all manage to get together virtually and lift each other up, which I think is great.
So, Ali, I've heard now that you're making more income than any of your previous jobs that you were working in, and probably working, I don't know if it's as hard as the music industry, but it looks like you're working really hard because your content is so well polished and it's so well put together. And that only comes from putting everything into it and also, creating your own unique style. And I mean style, not just from baking, but just from everything. When I see your videos, I know it's you already. Automatically, you're like, you open it up with, hello, my little sprinkles. You have to say it in your voice though, right? But it is just that it is like a production watching your videos. And, now you're drawing a lot of income from it and able to draw income from it. How does that feel for you to just to have that? But then also at the same time, you've also got this weight of this potential TikTok ban in America, like weighing as a dark cloud on your shoulders, right? Just to go, well, and also getting criticism from other people saying this is not a real job. What are your thoughts there?
To anybody who says what content creators do is not a real job, I'll choose polite words because the words, I am very spicy. We will just say that. Yes, I'm a baking lady. Okay. And I know a lot of bakers, especially ones that we grew up with watching on TV, right? Everybody's prim and they're proper and no, like I've got tattoos. I'm from the music industry. I've got a lot of tattoos. My daddy was a sailor, so I curse like one. I'm very spicy. I'm very feisty. I'm very fiery. So for the people who say that creating content is not a real career, I challenge you to become a content creator for a week, post every single day on multiple platforms throughout your stories, have everything lined up, negotiate at least one brand deal with some brand that wants to pay you $150 for $4,000 worth of work, and constantly try to juggle the amount of things that baking content creators specifically, right? Because if you're in makeup or you're in beauty or you're in fashion, like a lot of those videos are, I'm trying on an outfit or I'm showing off a purse or I'm doing this or I'm doing that. With baking, you're literally creating something, right? Like you have to create an entire thing for each video that you film. And then you have to do that all day long. And so I get really spicy with people who think what I'm not doing is a job or a real job or career. And I have to say, I have doubled what I made in my highest paying litigation paralegal job. And that's on track to be even more this year than I made last year. And so It's crazy to me. I don't believe it. And there's a part of me that has, like everybody, and I do want content creators especially to hear this, we all have imposter syndrome. It's not just you and it's not just me. We all have it. And I also have that underlying fear that it's all going to go away, because if TikTok goes away, I make one rate for Instagram and I make a whole lot more for TikTok because I have a much bigger audience there. And there is much more potential to go viral on TikTok, I'm sorry, than there is on Instagram. Reels has not figured that out yet, the way that TikTok has. And so, let's say I had a campaign last year that I did with a big brand and around Christmas time. And usually paid promos don't go very well. You don't get big views on them, over 3 million hits. And that was great. And the brand was super happy with it. But they pay me a lot more for that TikTok video than they're going to pay me for the size of audience that I have on Instagram. Now, back to being delusional, for me, it's all going to work out, because really, if TikTok is banned, there are already other developers out there, I'm sure, that are figuring out they're not going to crack that same algorithm, I guarantee it, but they're figuring out what the next TikTok is, because before TikTok, there was something else. And before Instagram, there was something else. And it's only going to keep growing. And so for me, it'll be a temporary setback, but I'm also confident that we're going to be able to find a way to overcome that and deal with it and, get a higher rate on Instagram, because really a lot of creators should be being paid higher rates than they are, but we're all just kind of underselling ourselves, because companies will come at you with these kind of lowball offers and you think that's all you're worth making because that's what they're paying. And companies have bigger budgets than they tell you they do. And so I don't know. I think it's all going to work out, but maybe it won't. And then I'll have to find something else to do. But for right now.
Let me ask you this, though. You've got a lot of diverse experience in previous careers as a content creator today. So you obviously have a large part of your career was in music and television and such. So you've seen something that a lot of content creators haven't. And does that make you think that, as a next level or down the road, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is for you, do you see content creation migrating back into a different format of media based on the experience that you had before? Could you see yourself, or do you want to see yourself going on television alongside what you do online as a content creator? Is there opportunity for that? Is that how it works? Or do you just think this is actually the future rather than me stepping back into other traditional media?
I think that content creation is here to stay. I think a lot of people are worried about it because AI is wow, you can take AI photos now. You can literally just put in product photos, right? For product photos. I want a hand holding this beauty product and AI makes it. It's insane. And I'm very scared of AI. We all should be. We should all be terrified of it. But I think that content creation will continue to be a thing. I think content creation and influencer marketing specifically, and working with, even if you're not an influencer, but you're someone who can create content for brands that they don't have to hire on their team in their office, that is the future of marketing. And the future of marketing is here. And brands are waking up to that now. And they're recognizing this is how we get our brand out there. This is how we reach new audiences. This is how we reach new audiences in a way where instead of paying one employee to create this content, we pay multiple influencers or multiple UGC content creators. And we take these different areas. We spend the same amount of money, but we spread it across a few people so that we kind of increase our odds of where our stuff is going and who it's being seen by. For me personally, my ultimate goal, again, delusional, book and TV show. Those are the things I want. I have known since I was a kid, I'm meant to do something big. I've got a big personality. And for a long time, when I left the music industry, I was tried to just stamp that personality down and say, okay, I've got to have a smaller personality. I've got to be quieter. I've got to be more agreeable. I've got to be this. I've got to be that. And I have been through too much in the last several years to do that ever again. I'm not going back to that point in my life. And so now it's, okay, can I monetize this? Can I monetize this personality? Can I make this into a brand? Can I make this into a thing? Maybe I can, maybe I can't. So far, I'm doing it. And I'm just working towards that goal of I want to have a TV show. I want to have a book. If I get those things, great. If I don't, it'll suck. And what will I do from there? But for now, it's for me really enjoying what I'm doing, continuing to make content, getting better at making content, because where I'm at right now, I'm still using an iPhone. I'm not even shooting on a regular camera. I have a nice camera. I am so paralyzed with fear about learning how to use it. And I know my content would be so much better if I would just do it, but I'm terrified. So just trying to get past those hurdles and make better content and take better photos and also do more brand collaborations. I had so much fun last year working with one of my favorite brands, Replica Surfaces, to co-design a collection of surfaces with them. I really looked at what do baking content creators, what do I want as a baking content creator? What do I think my fellow baking content creators would want? Can we make a whole collection around that? And so that was, really exciting. We came out with this really fun, colorful, vibrant collection, and the back of the boards all had like sprinkles or donuts on them. And
They're really nice.
It was amazing, right? And so for me, it's like I'm finding at the same time these new avenues of like, oh wow, like I can co-design a product with a company that I love. I never would have thought in 2020 that I was going to be able to say that. So for me now, it's what can I do to just keep building on this feeling? Because I'm not going to lie to you, it's a high. Like every time you get to do one of these things, it's like, wow, I never in a million years, like I'm confident and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do these things. But then when they actually happen, it's like, I can't believe I'm doing this thing. I can't believe this is happening. Like I have a company that I love that I've been working with since the beginning. And I've been working with their products for years since I was a pastry chef in fine dining. And they're actually flying me out to LA next month to film YouTube content in their test kitchen. And I'm just like,
wow,
this is crazy. Like they're, a fairly small business. They're like a family owned operation. So they don't have like a huge budget, and they're still like giving me some of their budget. And it's so wonderful to build those kinds of relationships with brands where like you can co-design a product with them or come and film content in their kitchen. It's just, nothing makes me happier.
It's amazing.
But you've worked for that, Ali. You've worked for that. These things don't happen if you don't put in the hard work and the long hours and the long days and a lot of the downtimes as well. There'll be a lot of times where you posted something and you think, oh, that was awful. I can't believe I've done that. It doesn't look that great. Or there's a flip side to it as well. I'm sure that like not through every good TikTok that hits millions, there'll be another one that you might post the next week that might get 4,000 views, right?
It's so inconsistent on social media, and a lot of content creators get so down about it. I've seen so many people down about it recently. Even for me, like I just had a video that hit 10.1 million views on Reels. And then this week, none of my videos are doing anything. And it's, even if I post something that's a similar style to what went viral, it's the same way on TikTok. Something can go viral one week and then they don't care about it the next. And it's just very fickle. And so, just a reminder to all the other content creators out there, like you're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. You're going to have a video that you love so much and you're like, for sure, this is going to go viral, like for sure. And it's going to get 4,000 views and your soul is going to get crushed just a little bit, but you'll have another viral video again. And you shouldn't be focusing on that. Like, yes, it's a big aspect of it. Like, the more often you go viral, the more brands see you, the more people want to reach out to you, the more followers you get, the more sort of value you have to brands that might want to work with you. But like, you also have to be passionate about what you're doing. Try not to get stuck in a rut. For many of us, it's just a season where it's like spring and summer, not my times. Like the work is down. Companies, aren't coming at you as frequently as they are in the holiday season from about August or September through January. Great. Everybody wants a lot of work, got a lot of budget, toss it in there. And this time of year is really slow. And for me, it's not as creatively pleasing because I love Halloween. I love fall. I love Christmas. I love winter. I love those things. And this time of year, I'm not as inspired by like florals and the heat of summer, the Alabama humidity heat of summer. So it's just, a reminder to everybody out there that is creating content and feels like they're in a rut or like I've hit a wall. Keep working through it. You're going to hit the wall. You're going to keep hitting the wall because social media as a career sucks and it's difficult, but you just have to keep at it and be true to yourself and post what you want to see and pay attention to your analytics. What's performing well. You don't have to copy that video every time, but what's performing well? For me on TikTok, it's scraping frosting off of cakes. That's what gets millions and millions of views.
She was saying this to me. We were talking over dinner earlier. And she's just like, it seems like the most popular thing that seems to resonate with Ali's followers is scraping icing off a frozen cake that lives in her fridge.
Yeah, also use the blowtorch as well.
Yes, and the blowtorch as well. I have, your little tiny, weeny little drinks, your fairy drinks. These are amazing. They're just the best. I was just going to ask, because we ask bakers who are baking, in their businesses about burnout and, how they recognize burnout and have they hit it. And almost all of them have multiple times. But it's always interesting to hear about how they recognize it. And I wanted to ask you this in terms of, a 7-day-a-week job that, you're pressured to keep making content. You're worried that if you take a 2-week holiday, things are just going to fall apart on this algorithm and maybe people will just not see you for a while. Have you hit that burnout stage because you put in so much? And then what did that look like for you? What did you do to then prevent it or get around it so that you're back to being creative and inspirational again?
I don't think there's any preventing it, but that's me personally. I will just work and work and work and work and work. I will just keep working. If I'm passionate about something, it's good for the companies that I work for. Right now, I'm feeling particularly burnt out. I'm feeling not very creative. It feels really hard for me to focus again, because it's that time of year where I'm just like, please don't make me put flowers on anything else. But for me, it's getting back to things I'm passionate about, things I like, making content that I want to make just because I want to make it. And some of my most successful videos have just been last year, for instance, I had this dipped cupcake that went super viral on Reels, and it did pretty good on TikTok as well, but it got like 10 million views or something on Reels. And it was just like a dipped cupcake. And I literally made it as I was making another video. I was like in the middle of that and I was waiting for something to set. And so I was like, you know what? I could just do this really quickly because I have all the things here. And I just made it. And it took me like 5 minutes to make. And I was like, oh, whatever, this is whatever. And I posted it and it went super viral. And I swear I grew like 50,000 followers in like a month because of that video on Instagram, which like 50,000 followers in a month on TikTok, easy. 50,000 followers on Instagram in a month?
Very hard.
Impossible.
Yeah.
But you just have to find the things you love.
Yeah.
Do what you love. Make something new. If your usual isn't working for you, make something new. Take time off. Self-care. Get a massage. Get an iced coffee. Go somewhere and get yourself a coffee. Take care of yourself. You really have to listen to yourself. So like last week, I just didn't work as much. I knew I was feeling burnt out and I had to take care of myself. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to work as much. I'm going to do some self-care. I'm going to do some yoga therapy exercises. I've got this weird like eye mask thing now that like massages your eyes. And that's supposed to like help give you some stress relief, and just focusing on those things, doing whatever you can, and then getting back to work. Like, it's so funny because you said, you're worried about not being able to have a 2-week vacation. I didn't take my wedding off. I didn't take my honeymoon off. I was creating content and I was posting on platforms almost every day throughout both of those major life events. And, anytime I travel now, anytime I go somewhere, it's, content. Like, I can make content. So
you can just see it though sometimes, can't you? Start thinking about everything in like video format and like,
everything.
if I take so many videos of this, I could record my own video. I can make my own reel or TikTok video of my wedding, and like, wouldn't that be fun, right? And so everything is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Everything is like, but
it's like the behind the scenes, but in not quite behind the scenes. It's like it's the day in the life, or it's any other theme that you want to associate with it. But for you, it's something new, and it's most likely going to be quite inspirational to be in that new environment.
Yeah.
That's the contradiction of it, is that you're doing it most people do it to take a break, but you end up doing it to take the break. But while you're there, you're thinking, hang on a minute, I could create some great content out here. This is brilliant, right?
It's like going to the spa. So a week or two ago, I went to this local spa and they're incredible. And I was like, I'm going to relax. And then I was like, they're a small business and I have so many followers. And if I post about them, maybe they'll get some more followers because I love the people that work here so much. And it becomes nothing, by the way, that I do locally. Nothing is paid for. I do not take on paid work for local small businesses. I do not now. I will never. And we didn't touch on this, but like in the influencer thing of people like saying it's not a real job, a lot of people view influencers as inauthentic people. And so for me, my authenticity is my number one. That is the most important, sacred thing to me that I guard as a content creator with everything that I have in me, is making sure that the content I'm producing is authentic. I'm not telling you I love a product if I don't love a product. If a company sends me something, and I don't like it, I don't post about it. I'm not going to post anything negative because I don't want to hurt a business, but I'm also not going to like say that I like something that I don't like. And I think that's very hard for people who have never made content to understand that there are a lot of really authentic, passionate content creators out there. And I have seen plenty of content creators that do get stuck in a loop where they are just starting out and they are trying to get bigger. And so they do take on these jobs and their content does come across as inauthentic. And that's my main focus is I want everything to be authentic. So like if you see me and I'm at a local restaurant or I'm at a local thing and I'm posting about it, or I'm in some other city and I'm at some new restaurant I've never been to and I'm posting about how much I love it, it's really because I love it. It's because I absolutely love it. I love being there and I want to help a small business out by, even if only one person follows them. I don't have a huge following, but it's big enough that like there are enough local people now that like maybe I could turn them on to something new and give this place that I love a new customer, and that's super important. But it does mean, unfortunately, that you are working all the time.
Yeah.
And that everything is content.
It's brilliant though. This is really good.
Before we go through our final round, I just want to ask, is it just one of you, Ali? Do you have a team? Do you have someone helping you out, managing your negotiations with brands, etc.? Because you work with a lot of brands, and I'm just thinking about, there's probably a lot of to and fro in email content discussions. It's not straightforward. It's not like they say, yeah, Ali, here's some cash, go do what you want. And here's the product that we want you to promote. There's usually a lot of back and forth.
Some companies are great. So like the companies that I've been working with for a long time, some of them are so great. Amaretti is one of those companies, or the flavoring company that I work with. I have a standing content agreement with them where they say, we're going to send you these products, each month. It's a different set of flavors. We'll send you these, do whatever you want with them, go wild. Just make sure you post 3 in a month, whatever. And then they pay me for that. And that's great. Those are the jobs I love. And then you have companies that are bigger, right? So like Country Crock, or somebody that's got a lot of money, a big budget, and a huge legal team behind them where everything has to be done. Every caption is like so overly legally thought out down to the word. And if you use one wrong word, you need to delete the post.
Rachel's nodding because she used to work at Apple and she knows exactly how specific they can be about absolutely everything, as you can imagine, right?
Yeah. Oh, any large corporation is. So my husband works for a large tech company and it's the same way. And he'll just be like, he's a product manager and he's like in charge of this new product. And he's like, this product is his baby, but the legal team, the amount of legal stuff, like just naming the product is impossible. And they're German, right? So it's like the stuff they come back with is just like, no, you can't. And so it's very interesting. But I do not have a team. I signed on with a management company late last year for a trial run, and we just didn't end up being a good fit for each other. They were more interested in taking a cut of, work that I was already getting or renegotiating things for me so that they could take a cut. But most of the money I was making was stuff that they didn't have access to because it was pre-existing, and I didn't want them to renegotiate my contracts, right? So it just wasn't a good fit. Like the manager that I signed on with left, like almost just like during my wedding, I found out that she had left, and I really only signed on because I wanted to work with her. And I was like, ooh, I don't like this already. And then there just wasn't a lot of effort the way that I would expect if I'm giving someone 20% of my income. I would expect that I would never have to reach out to another brand again. And they were like, well, we really want you to continue brand outreach. I said, continue? I said, I don't reach out to brands in the first place. Brands come to me. I will tag a brand when I use a product that I like if I want to try and work with them. I will build authentic relationships where I will comment on their videos with genuine things that I like about their products or their company and, build that rapport with them. But I do not slide into somebody's DMs and go, hey, I really want to work with you, because that's not what I'm comfortable with, right? And that's why I hired a management company in the first place. So that experience did not work out well for me. Maybe in the future, I will find a more better suited for me. That management company might work really well for some people. For me, it wasn't a management company for me. And so I hope, in the future that I'll have that and I'll have somebody. But for me, I have to have somebody behind me. I have to have a team behind me that believes in me and that is equally as passionate about my success and as delusional about my success as I am. I don't want anybody that brings me anything less. If you don't agree with me, if you don't think, yeah, we can get you on TV, no problem. Yeah, we can get you a book deal, no problem. Like, we're going to work towards those things. I don't want it. I'm not interested. I'll keep negotiating myself. I've done it before. I'll do it again. But it is a lot of work. It is a lot of work by yourself.
Yeah, but I don't see you giving up that fight anytime soon. You'll be fine. You've got the grit and determination, that's for sure. We could talk to you all night, to be honest, but it's getting late here. We love to wrap up with a quick fire question round with our guests. So first thing that comes to mind, you can explain it. You don't have to. It's totally fine. It's all baking related. So you've got enough experience here. You'll be able to answer these just fine. I am curious. Do you prefer American buttercream or Swiss meringue buttercream?
Neither.
Neither? Okay, tell us.
I prefer Italian meringue buttercream. It's slightly easier for me to make than Swiss meringue buttercream. And it's just so much better than American buttercream. American buttercream's great if you want something easy. But Italian, I think, frosts like the cake. And it's the best for cake. It gives a nice, smooth, it's my favorite. And it's not too sweet. Yeah. American buttercream is like...
Yeah. Most of the year, it's quite warm down in Alabama, right? Most of the year. So
and humid.
So, you've also got that issue of just baking in general heat, unless your kitchen is well aircon, but
it is.
Okay, well, that helps. Definitely helps, because otherwise, right, there is that challenge. That's very interesting. All right, Rachel.
All right. One aspect of baking you won't compromise on.
For me, it's the quality of my ingredients. I'm really passionate about, so nerdy, but chocolate specifically. I am not going to use cheap chocolate. I do for some things, like for content especially, but if I'm making something for a client, which I don't anymore, or whatever, or I want to impress my dinner party guests, like I'm going to use couverture chocolate all the way. The quality of ingredients, quality of cocoa powder, chocolates in your cookies, in your cakes, flavorings, those sorts of things. I don't want to use like cheap vanilla extract. I'm a big, I love Hey Lala vanilla. That's my favorite. So yeah, for me, it's quality of my ingredients. I'm not compromising on that. I got in trouble for that as a pastry chef, certainly, for having to order ingredients that cost more than anybody wanted to spend on them, but they were worth it.
They were worth it. Clients would have loved it.
It was fine dining, of course.
Exactly.
I had the best sorbet in town because I was using Amaretti ingredients for it. And it was expensive, but it was the best sorbet in town. So you get what you get.
Exactly. All right. I've got one for you. Do you have a baking book from your bookshelf you would like to share?
Oh, I have so many baking books on my bookshelf. The most recent one that I bought was, I think it's called Macaron School, and it's from Camilla that does Pies and Tacos. She's at Pies and Tacos. She's so amazing. So I'm really excited to try her macaron method. I
didn't realize she did a book.
She did. Amazing. Yeah, it's available on Amazon, and she's incredible. I got to interview her at the Bake Fest a couple of years ago, and she's so great and so talented. Her work is so good. And then I'm going to butcher his last name, David Leibowitz, The Perfect Scoop. It's my favorite ice cream book. His ice cream recipes are my favorite of all time.
Oh, that's brilliant. Love it. Thank you.
Amazing. Finally, who would you want to make your next birthday cake?
Oh, man. This is a tough one. This is a mean question.
It shouldn't be mean.
Well, I make all of my own birthday cakes, but if somebody were going to make one for me, I would say either... Oh no, there's so many good cakers. Either Liz from Love is Bakeable, because she's so cool and she makes all the really cool frost form cakes. Or Liz down to two Liz's, Liz from Sugar Geek Show. Oh, or Ellis from the Cake
Girl.
Yeah, the Cake Girl. Yeah, sure. Oh, she's adorable.
She's the best. Joey, her mom, Joey is.
Yeah.
They're so amazing.
She was on stage at SoFlo a couple of weeks ago, and it was just incredible to watch her. It's almost like she was going through the moment that you had when you were 4, right? And she's 5, and she's up there.
She's so much more accomplished than I am. I'm 36, and she's already more accomplished than I am at 5, and she's more talented than I am too. She's incredible.
But Ali, social media didn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
You and I were growing up, so who knows?
Thank goodness.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
My gosh. Tell you what. Well, listen, that was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to really give us a lot of interesting advice and experience on just content creation in general. Because there'll be a lot of people listening to this thinking I kind of want to do it, but I just don't know what's involved or how to go about it. Or it's just,
do it.
Yeah, just do it. That's it. Just go. Love it.
You don't know until you try, right? So just do it. I have a lot of people that are like, I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I'm going to be really honest. I still don't know what I'm doing. Most of the time, I'm just like, does this look good? Okay, post. Like, just do your best. Give it a try. My DMs are always open if people need to ask any questions. I don't have all the answers, but I can certainly try to help you or point you in the direction. I'm all about connecting people with people that can help them. So any questions, feel free to DM me and ask.
Super kind of you. Thank you, Ali. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, Ali.
Bye.
That wraps up episode 22 of my baking journey with Ali, Sugarpusher. You want to know more about Ali? Just go check out the show notes for everything you need. Listen, thanks for being a part of this. We hope you're really enjoying season 3. I know I am. If you want to be automatically notified when the podcast gets released, just hit that subscribe or follow button in your favorite podcast app. And that's all you have to do. Sit back and wait. We're back next week with another fantastic guest. So tune in for that. And just remember, this podcast is brought to you by Olba, packaging for bakers, designed by a baker. Check us out at www.olba.shop. Cheers.